power trigger is here on this side here, and there's a usual safety switch, so you can push this in and you can lock that down and the thing will stay running. To fit the parallel guide, you simply slot these rods into the guide itself and then use these two outside knobs just to lock that into position. Loosen off this knob here on the router and then the rods slide into these two holes here. And then you can set the distance that you want this parallel fence to go to. Once you've got to the right distance, or more or less, tighten this single knob down and that clamps it all into place. You can then use this adjuster here, and we'll see if we can pick that up. If you watch this black piece, if you watch this black piece here, you should be able to see that is now winding away. And if I turn the other way, that's winding forward. And again, it's got increments of 0.1 millimeter with a full rotation being a millimeter. So we can really tune and dial that in. Once it's where it needs to be, this top knob here tightens that down and locks it into place. There are some really handy marks. There's one here, there's one here, and there's one here, and each of those marks are showing you the center point of the bit. So if I have a piece of work I want to route on, I can now simply line up those center marks with the line, and I know I'm perfectly positioned to go ahead and route that piece of material. The parallel guide also comes with a dust collector. It simply slots into these areas here and clipped into place, and then you can use the 27mm inside or 36mm outside hose to take your dust away. Also comes with a sacrificial fence. You simply undo these screws here, 1, 2, and that then allows this to slide to accommodate your larger router bit, and simply lock that down into place as required. So with everything locked down, everything in place, all my settings in place, my dust collection in place, my fences set, I can now go ahead and make the cut I need. The universal guide is really simple. It simply slots into these two holes here using these two prongs. Click, click, that's into place. And now you can either use this bush as a guide, or you can mount a whole host of different adapters and guides inside there. And you can remove this faceplate here by undoing these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 screws. That will take this plate off, and you can change that for a whole host of different bases. To remove this, there are two green clips, one here and one here. Simply press those together and that releases the clip. Also, we get this second dust guard, dust extractor, clips into the same holes, clip, clip. That then allows you to run across the edge of material, and in conjunction with this dust adapter, that dust extractor, that helps you to remove your waste. And again, the two green clips on the top simply allow you to release that, and it pops out. Where the router really comes into its own, of course, is when we use it with the MFT3 table and the FS track. That's where these come in, the FS guides. They simply slot onto the track, slot together, and then that allows you to guide the router into a straight cut. You need to tune these to the rail. There's a couple of adjustment screws here inside. You simply tighten those up until that sits snugly on the rail like that, but it still moves. And all that's happening is those screws are pushing down on these plastic cams at the front, and that's then gripping the rail. The way it works, you take a piece of wood, bang it in, drop on the FS guide, drop on the second FS guide. With your router, you then drop in the two bars and tighten those down. The router then slots through into these FS guides, and there's two holes that allow the bars to slot into, one here and one here, and this knob here is a clamping knob. So undo both of those knobs so they're nice and loose, connect those together, and now I can come ahead and I can slot in the two rails into the device. Snug the back one down, but don't tighten it. Tighten the front one down, and that then secures the guides to your bars. This fine adjuster now will now move the router forward and backwards. Now you'll notice that if I let go now, this is going to tip, and that's because there's a gap obviously underneath the rail and the router base. That's where this little device comes in here. It's a foot, and this foot simply attaches to this hole here. Oops, a daisy. Attaches to this hole here. Simply slots on and snugs down, and then that will slide in and out, and it's quite a secure device. So get it up out of the way, put this on the guide, push down on the back, drop the foot and tighten that into place. That is now secure. As you can see, that will allow me to make a nice cut. With that done, let's go ahead and make a test cut. We're going to use a dovetail cutter, and we're just going to route a sliding dovetail pretty much where that line is. It's a 1/2 inch collet, it's a 1/2 inch bit. I slide this into place, hold down the insert, the in diagram on the green switch, and now I can nip this down. Like so. I then want to zero out my cutter. So I release my plunge and I plunge down till it bottoms out, tighten my plunge up. I can then zero my scale and I can zero my fine adjustment as well, and set my stop to my lower post. This is 18mm material, so we'll come down, what, 10mm, seem reasonable. So we undo this and we now can set that guide to 10mm on the scale, and we can just put a bit of fine adjustment on that to help us there, and that's 10mm. Then I want to set my board up. Your router's not going to use your zero cutting edge, so we just set that up a little bit away from there. I can now attach my two rails into my router like so, and I can lock those into place. Lower the foot to give me some support, and now I can line up my board with my two cutting guides. Make sure everything is now nice and locked down. I'm in a softwood. It's a relatively narrow bit, so we'll go to speed 6. Put my weight down on here. Plunge down. Lock off. And make the cut. So that's where the real power of these Festool starts to come to the fore, when we start to create a system with these various tools working together. And if we just look at the quality of this joint, really crisp, really clean inside there, and a stopped sliding dovetail joint done. So that's pretty much about it really, not a lot more to say about it. It's an excellent tool, it's lightweight, it will do most things we want it to do in the workshop. As I say, we just need to see whether or not we can solve that problem of the raised panels, and we'll look at that down the line when we get hold of the router table. But yeah, it's going to do everything we need it to do. It's now unboxed, it's now ready to work, and the next job it's going to do is to cut all the holes into these dividers inside the sys ports. It's going to work in conjunction with the LR32 sys, so we'll unpack that and look at how that works, and we'll do that in the next video. See you soon.